And without further ado, I'm going to let Lisa introduce herself and get started.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Lanier. Welcome, welcome. Very, very glad you're here. Just by way of background, so my background is primarily in the marketing information space. So I spent a number of years at Ipsos, which is one of the largest global research firms in the world, and worked with everybody you know. I worked with P&G, Microsoft, Google, Kraft, Unilever, all the brands that you know, and led their largest US division focused on innovation and branding. Worked on a number of probably a lot of brands and things that you buy in the grocery store. So I had a lot of fun with that. And a lot of my focus there was leadership teams, restructuring, acquisitions. I left there and went to another company in the private equity space. Um, Restructured them, got them ready to sell. So I've got a broad range of background, but then I really decided I wanted to focus on leaders and people. That was the thing that excited me the most. And so I trained as a coach probably about 9 years ago. I'm an executive coach. I work with leaders. I also work in a lot of companies going through change and transformation. And I can honestly tell you, I love what I do. Absolutely love what I do when I work with leaders and their teams. And one of the big things that we talk a lot about is your brand, your personal brand. So that's exactly what we're gonna do today. Um, I just saw accountability pop up. It's my number one value. So we'll talk about values today. Oops. Well, it's going to work better if I share this. Let me try that again. Share. All right. We showing? All right. So, and as we go along, please feel free to put questions up, or we can stop and I'll stop a couple times and ask some questions. So just what I would throw out there is I hope we'll make today interactive. I'll throw some questions in the chat. Hopefully we can have a little bit of fun. But consider this a supportive space. Asking questions, we can really work through this together because I do want to make sure that you take something of use away from today. So the goal for today is really to look at, what is a personal brand and really thinking about why it matters. Then we'll talk about your personal brand, how you can audit it, how you can really think about what it is, how you can learn, and some tactics and tools and approaches that will help you either build it, write it if you've never done it, refine it, and then how to bring it to life. So let's have a little bit of fun to get started. So if you think about Martha Stewart, what are 2 to 3 words that come to mind that you would use to describe her brand? So you can pop them in the chat. You can say them out loud, whatever would work. But I'm curious. Anyone? I
So,
can't see the.
oh, you can't see the chat. I'm seeing Michelle said sophisticated,
Okay. Anybody else?
um, funny, authentic, and creative, fun and
Okay.
strategic, creative,
Yeah. Yep.
entrepreneur,
Oh yeah.
resilient,
Those are great ones. All
high
right.
performing. Yep.
How about him? How about Warren Buffett? Totally different personality.
Honest,
Yeah.
steady,
Ah, love that.
financial success,
Yes. Yes.
prudent and generous, legend,
Ah, there's a great word. All right.
smart.
I yes. So I have one more. How about Taylor Swift?
Generous, same as all the above, Sarah said.
Ah,
Bold and creative, generational success,
yeah.
strategic,
Yeah.
multi-talented.
So it's interesting because I think that Martha Stewart worked very hard to shape her brand, especially early on. If you think about her cookbooks, her things that she did. But there were also things that happened in her life that shaped her brand that were, somewhat outside of her control. Warren Buffett, at some level, it happened because of who he is. And Taylor Swift has been very intentional, right? You think about how she drops things, how she handles social media, what she does, the stories that are out there, all the things that come out in movies. So it's something to think about, right? In terms of there are some similarities between these three, but also a huge number of differences in terms of that. I think, Marissa, when you and I talked about Warren Buffett the other day, I think you used the word humble.
Yes, sorry, just a quick story. I told Lisa that I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true, that Warren Buffett's son did not even know that he was as rich as he was until his son was in his 20s. So I just thought that said so much about him and the way that he must have raised his children.
Yeah,
I thought that was such an interesting story.
yeah. So thanks. So thank you for kind of I thought that would get us warmed up a little bit. So let's start talking about your brand and why it even matters. Why should your personal brand matter? Why should you care about it? And I think at the end of the day, education and performance are not enough. And a lot of times we think, well, if I do a good job or my resume shows all the great things that I did, that's going to speak for itself. People are going to know that I'm great. And the fact of the matter is that you need to differentiate yourself and the value that you deliver so that others see it. And that's part of what will really help you get access to opportunities. It could be jobs, it could be promotions in the organization, different types of leadership roles. So, kind of how you're seen in terms of your ability, your capability to lead people. Also, it's really getting a seat at the table. And a lot of times, what I hear from people is, I want a seat at the table. I want to be part of making those decisions. And so, what becomes important in your brand is really going beyond what you've done, because a lot of us can talk about what we've done and really start to focus on the impact that you've created and how you can tell that story. And your brand can really help you tell that story. So it creates opportunities for you to expand your network, to talk about you, to get other people to really know and understand who you are and what you can bring. So I love this quote from Jeff Bezos, which is your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And the reason that this is important is if you think about it, all important decisions about you are made when you're not in the room. So it is important that people really have an opinion of you, and it's that brand, it's something that you've shaped because that's who's making those decisions about you when you're not there. So that was a little bit about why. So let's talk about what a personal brand is. So personal brand is really what you stand for, but it has the components of how you see yourself and how you want to be seen and kind of the intersection with how others perceive you. So those two things come together. And when you think about that and what you want your personal brand to be, one of the things I would encourage you to really think about is although the core will stay the same, it may vary slightly depending on your audience. So I wanted to share a story just in terms of what does that mean. So I worked with a large manufacturing company a few years ago on a big transformation they were doing. And I was working on supporting the team through a lot of change, what they were doing, and it was led by engineers. And I showed up and they thought, oh, you're kind of this fluffy marketing salesperson. You don't have any technical knowledge. And I was worried about my credibility and my ability to have impact there because I wanted them to see me as someone who was an experienced change leader. So what I started with then, I learned, was I introduced myself as I'm the wife, the daughter, and the granddaughter of an engineer. I understand how you think. And it was very funny because that created a lot of credibility for me as I started working on some of the other things, right? So that was important to them that I got them, I understood them. In another situation, I'm working with a team of cardiac surgeons, and what I found in that situation is they didn't care at all about my business experience, the leaders that I'd worked with, the change that I'd made happen. They just wanted my credentials, how I was trained, how many degrees I had, where I went to school, what my training was. So it's kind of super interesting when you think about also your audience and kind of how you shape that. Although the core of what I can do and how I can impact these organizations was very much the same, I had to think a little bit in terms of what was important to my audience. So I just call that out as something to think about in different situations you may be in. All right, so let's talk a little bit more deeply about your personal brand and what it is. So your personal brand is what you stand for. And if you don't manage it intentionally, it can be a challenge, right? So if you manage it intentionally, if you do that, it will start to be what you want people to associate with you, the beliefs they have with you, the feelings they have about you. And you want to shape it into something about how you want people to see you. So I'll give you an example. I think about people who are described to me as they're nice, right? But think about if you shape that a little bit differently into, you know what, she's someone, we've got to have her in this meeting because she makes a difference in every meeting she's in because she asks the tough questions. And she really makes sure that we think about challenges before we commit to things. So that, I mean, there's a brand there in terms of, yep, she's going to ask those challenging questions, sometimes maybe seen as difficult, but she's going to make sure that we make good decisions. It could be something like someone who's seen as a creative problem solver. Maybe that we talked in the beginning when you guys were putting some words up, creativity showed up a lot. So what if you're someone seen as a creative problem solver? So part of where this comes into play is you want to think about two pieces to this, right? So one is your credibility is important, and this is kind of who you are in terms of respect and integrity. But there's more, which is your brand, kind of how you want to be seen is what creates visibility. And you can create intentional knowledge and awareness of you being very intentional about your brand. So we're going to talk more today about how to be very intentional in terms of creating what that story is. So how do you create this? How do you write this? And I'm going to share some different things about that, and then we'll do a short exercise together to kind of get you started. So to do this, the very first thing you need to do is understand your current brand. Maybe consider an audit of you in terms of doing a self-assessment and then asking for help and input from others. So a great way to start doing this is maybe over the next few days is take some time to write down some adjectives that would describe you. And you can think about, meetings you've been in, discussions you've had with different people, interactions you have, and start to take a step back and think about where am I adding value in those meetings? In terms of, and there are people who connect the dots. There are people who ask questions. There are people who bring a different point of view. There are people who build on ideas to make them even better. Different people bring different value. So think about those interactions. It could be how you make people feel. So what makes you unique is really a place to start. So here are a couple just examples, right? So someone might say, well, I'm a data analyst. But what could make an analyst unique is it's a data analyst and she sees beyond the numbers, right? Or I used to work with someone who was great at really translating data into application to a business. Um, Someone may say, I'm smart, or you describe someone as smart, but going beyond that could be quickly connecting the dots. So thinking about kind of taking it a little bit further, which is there may be some adjectives, but what becomes the impact of those? So that's a place to start, right? Kind of this self-assessment. Then you want to ask others. And when you do this, ask others you trust. And this could be people in your personal life, this could be people in your work life. Um, it could be both. But ask them, what are 5 to 10 words that come to mind when you think of me? And one of the reasons that this is great is you will see things come up that will surprise you. And you'll also start to see some consistency in terms of some of those different words. And I'll tell you, the first time I did this, I'm like, "Ah, I know what's going to show up. I know exactly what's going to show up." And I was surprised in a very good way, and it kind of expanded my thinking about myself. And what you might start to see is really, what makes you unique. You could also ask them, how do I contribute value? Again, to an organization, in business. But that is an interesting question because it gets people to start to really think about how you're different. Or you could ask them, how would you describe me when you're not in the room? And you can do this in an email. And I've seen people do it in email. You can also do it in just a short discussion. My guess is you'll get richer information if you do it in a chat. But let people know ahead of time what you really want to know. Maybe seed the discussion with some of these questions. And then the other thing that can be helpful here is to pull out any other feedback that you have. Any performance reviews, any assessment tools you've been through. Maybe you've done DISC, Hogan, leaderships, or I mean anything. Anything you've got that could help you take a look, or performance reviews. Again, you might see some trends in that. So I'm gonna stop for a minute before we go on. Does anybody have any questions or comments so far?
There's nothing in the chat, Lisa, but if someone wants to ask you a question and just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, please do. All right. Well, then let's keep
I
rolling.
actually do have a question.
Great.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
I'm Raven. I Something that came up as you were like asking the question of like the value, maybe not the value, but more so the feedback. What do we do? How could we like transcribe feedback that may be more on the challenging side? Like if they perceive something that could be an asset, but they perceive it as like um oh, she's very like too assertive or something like that. Just I was curious like your thoughts on that because some people may
Take
provide
take.
feedback that's like considered awesome, or it could be they could perceive it as a challenge.
So I think you started to answer the question, right? Which is how do you turn that to the other side? So I would say two things. So one is consider who's providing the feedback, and maybe what the motivation was, or if you have the experience or the opportunity to ask that person. So tell me a little bit more about what you mean about this. What do you mean by this? If they assertive is a great one. Um, what would good look like? Because the fact of the matter is being assertive in a situation, that's where you get into providing challenge, asking great questions, surfacing things in a room. So starting to think about, okay, maybe if you are assertive, what do you want to do with that? What's the
Mm,
impact that you want to create?
I love that. So so first like being discerning, having curiosity,
Yeah.
and then also alchemizing the feedback into something that works as an asset for you.
And yeah, and what do you want? What's that impact that you want to have?
I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a
This is
great
cool.
question. Yeah. Anybody else? All right, let's keep rolling. So I'm sharing this now. We're going to go back through the detail of this, but I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of a framework that you could use in terms of what a brand statement can look like. So we're going to talk through the components of this, and then we're going to send out the follow-up. You'll get this. So you'll get the slides from today and this framework that you can use. You're welcome to take a screenshot or whatever, but I just wanted to let you know you will get it in terms of when we send it out. So it's thinking about, what kind of leader you are, what your brand is, your legacy. So we'll talk about that, and then how you create impact. So the starting point, and we touched on this several times, but it's really about what makes you unique. What's your unique value proposition? So maybe you're a whiz at connecting the dots. I used that as an example before. Maybe you're someone who thinks about things differently. You're a problem solver, you're an innovator, you're a connector, you bring teams together, you have a way of challenging people that opens conversations rather than closing it, right? And we all know both types of people. So think about what is that combination of skills, experience, and perspective that you have that makes you unique. So I'll give you an example. I'm working with someone who not only is very strategic at a high level, but also is very detail oriented. And that's kind of a unique combination, but it's something that makes this person a great leader for the type of role that they have. So do think about that, and all these questions that we had, kind of talking to people, getting input, can all help you come up with that. And something that I would highly encourage you to do as you go through this is be bold. So this isn't a time to be super humble about yourself. This is a time to be aspirational. So maybe it's not exactly who you are today, but maybe who you want to be in a year or 2 years. Because then as you think about bringing your brand to life, this is who you are striving to be. So the next thing to really think about is, as you think about your brand, what gets you up in the morning? What are you really passionate about? And maybe even differentiating what you're good at versus what you're passionate about. And this is important. And again, I'll give you a personal example. I was very, very good at sales. I ran sales teams. I was very good at selling huge global relationships with clients, but I honestly wasn't passionate about it. What I was really passionate about was creating great teams, developing leaders of salespeople and client people who exceeded their goals every year, and they created impact with the value they created for their clients, right? So what I was passionate about was growing those teams, growing those leaders who did this. And so that's where this comes into play. I could have kept doing what I was good at, but I wanted to do something more. So as you think about this and your brand, that's part of what you want to focus on. Can also show up in how you write your LinkedIn profile, what you highlight there. So again, think about what you're passionate about, what you're most proud of in terms of what you bring, what inspires you. And then another great question to really consider is, what do you want your legacy to be? So if someone was giving a speech about you, what do you want them to say in terms of where you made a difference? Maybe this gets into how you made them feel. We always talk about, people may forget what you've done, but they'll never forget how you made them feel, which is very, very true. We all know that. And if I think again to my past, yes, I was someone who every year delivered consistent growth with my teams. We always exceeded our budget. That's really not what I want to be known for. I want to be known for someone who helped people on my teams to do things they never thought they were capable of doing. I grew the future leaders of that organization. So, very, very much of a difference in terms of that. And one of the things I wrote in here was, what I want people to say about what I stood for and my values. So the organization that I was in valued the numbers that we delivered. That was kind of what they valued. But what was important to me and what I valued were the people. So this is where you need to think about the organization that you're in or you want to be in and kind of what's important there, but also what's important to you and what you value. So what I'm also, and you'll also get this tomorrow, but if you think about, this is a list of values. It's not globally comprehensive, but it's a pretty good list. And this can help you start to think about, these are some of the ways that I want people to think about me, as someone who is supportive, someone who is flexible, someone who, you can pick anything. There's a lot of them here. Someone who's helping others, spontaneity. I don't know. There's just a lot of things here that you can think about that may help get your process started as you think about those things that are important as a leader. And I'm going to show you some examples of what brand statements can look like. So again, this is that framework, right? As we think about all those questions I just asked around values, words you get from others, your legacy, and then what's the impact that you can create? And this gets into your unique value.
Lisa, I just wanted to tell you that we have a question from
Yeah,
Rick.
great.
He said, "Oh, what do you think of using Gallup Strengths Finder?"
You can use that to help you think about the type of leader you are, for sure. So think about what from that you want people to say about you. Does that answer your question, Rick?
You know, I my question is broader than that, I guess, because I've used it and found it to be helpful because what worries me sometimes is I don't want people to think I'm telling them what my strengths are off the
Yeah.
top of my head. That's why I feel like sometimes using that is like, okay, well, that's kind of an objective third party more than saying, oh, I'm a multitasker and a hard worker.
Well, and I think so. I think that's a great point. Your brand statement is not really something you're going to walk around and talk to people about or say to people. It's more about how you're going to show up. So if you think about those things that show up in StrengthsFinder, if they are part of who you want to be and you want people to say about you, then that's where they become important. Does that help? Yeah, I see you. Okay. Okay. So let me share a couple of examples. And what I'm going to tell you is the ones on this page are very straightforward, and then I'll share with you a pretty interesting creative one. But this gets into, confident, courageous, and empathetic leader. And empathy is one I see that shows up a lot. What is my brand? I trust, I collaborate, I challenge respectfully. And then thinking about my legacy. And, I inspired others to do things. So, and this can have a couple of different aspects, but think about those things that are important to you, what you want people to say about you. And then in your current situation, how can you impact it? Because this also will start to impact how you show up and how you bring this brand to life. So, and these are, a couple of other types of examples, right? So the first one is very personal. I'm going to, get people to think about to do things they didn't think were possible. Second one is more about developing teams. So it's at a different level. And something maybe unique in the second one is mentoring the next generation of leaders. So something that was very important to this person. The third one someone very high level, visionary, innovative. So maybe you have someone who's very creative, shows up a little bit differently. Cultivating an environment where everyone feels valued and heard. So that again tells you a lot about this person and what's important to them. And then fostering a culture of continuous improvement. Okay, so very, very different things there. And you'll get all these examples again. And the last one is bold, curious, people focused. Tells you a lot about this person. So curious, you have probably a different impression than the second one, strategic, resilient, and decisive. My brand is clarity with warmth. Okay. So again, someone a little bit different there. I say the hard things without making things harder. So this is a different way of writing it, but it tells you probably a little bit more about this leader. It's a little bit more personable. And how I can impact this team. So, and I showed these because I think the first few kind of follow the framework and you can get definitely creative. Yes, AI can absolutely be your friend in doing this. I would encourage you though, maybe to spend some time on it first because it can be very easy to just have AI do it for you. So I would encourage you to play around with it before you dive into your friend ChatGPT. So I also wanted to share this one because I thought this one was very fun. So digital transformation leaders. So here's another way. I'm the Mary Poppins of consumer experience and user experience. Fly in, find the true problems, improve everything, make magic happen, sing a few songs and fly away. So that tells you a lot about this person right here, right? So I wanted to share this because, and this is a true one that I found online. This isn't something that I made up. And when I read this, I thought, wow, I would love to meet this person. So just, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, but I thought it was fun. All right. So we're going to do an exercise in a moment together, but I was curious if there are any ahas coming to mind for you from what we just walked through or any questions.
I think, I'm sorry.
No, please, Michelle, go ahead.
I think that what I'm taking away for now is how this is really breaking away from having to just think about yourself like who your resume is. So I'm job
Yes.
searching right now, and
Yeah.
so much of what I have to focus on is meeting the language of a job description just to get noticed, but it's not who I feel I am or the value that I provide. And I try to bring that when I get an interview is to bring myself. I feel like this is going to help me communicate my value beyond just what's in my resume. So I'm really liking this so far.
I love that because when you're job searching, Michelle, you're spot on. It's really embodying this and living it and saying it authentically, and you start to show up that way. And people see that value. So spot on. Thank you. Yes, Rick.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that happens, I work in a couple different mentor organizations with first generation college students and teenagers. And sometimes when people get in the job search, I try to avoid this myself, is they fall into those certain words that everyone uses. I'm a multitasker, I'm a hard worker, I'm a people person. And it gets to be so repetitive and so nonsense because when you like I worked for Apple, we would interview 75 people in a day and you weren't allowed to take notes. And I was like, I mean, I'm only going to remember the people that are memorable. So the person with the Mary Poppins story, I'm going to remember that. You know, the person that had, I don't know, a different lapel pin or something. Like I always wear a lapel pin when I wear a blazer because people have to get up close to see what it is. And it's, it makes me unique, I think, to some extent. And that's the thing, like, you want to be authentic and not sound like everybody else, or you
Yes.
end up at the end of a job fair just sounding like 800 other people.
So I think you bring up a great point, and I use the word unique. I love your word memorable. what is it that will make me memorable? And thinking about that when you tell your story. And I think that's where impact can come into play again. So it's not, what you do becomes important sometimes to get through the screener to get the interview. But when you're talking to people, you really want to focus a lot on impact. So great, thank you. Yes, Sarah.
Tapped unmute. Okay. I
Yeah.
managed to unmute. There I am. Sorry, I'm now in my car, so sorry for the awkward background. But I was interested as you were talking about this, and as Raven was asking you the question, where the thread that was going through for me, listening to all of this, is to think about the ways in which either I critique myself or I've been offered that constructive feedback, and in what ways do those critiques actually reflect something that I'm really good at and uniquely good at?
Yes.
And if at times I offer someone too much analysis or am a little bit more insightful than they're ready for, maybe that speaks to the value of my insights that I need to temper as I've learned over time so that I don't overwhelm people. But I don't want to just ignore that quality that has gotten me into some tricky spots. I really want to hone it and not reject it, but really leverage it and use it for good. So this is interesting. It's got me thinking. So thank
Well,
you.
it sounds like maybe it gets a little bit into you make sure things don't get missed,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And sometimes that's really helpful. And
Yes.
sometimes it's disruptive in a good way, but if the timing isn't right, sometimes it can be problematic. So
Yeah.
there's something about thoughtfulness and care paired
Yeah.
with that quality that I need to think about that more.
The right information at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So and thinking aspirational, right, comes into that. Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love
Definitely.
the self-reflection. Thanks, Sarah. All right. Anyone else? All right. So let's try something. Let's just take a couple of minutes kind of to get your brain thinking. Um, so what I thought might be helpful is I'll throw out a few questions and maybe just write down a word or a phrase for each of them. So the first one would be when I'm not in the room, others most often say that I am blank. I'm sure you have some idea, but even just getting started with one word. Then the next one would be to think about, all right, again, one word or one phrase. We're just trying to get your juices flowing. The way I want to be known or what I want people to say about me is blank. This can be a great opportunity to turn that word like Sarah and Raven were bringing up. And maybe thinking about this question of when I'm at my best, I help others by blank. So this might be something that you've gotten feedback on, or again, maybe where is the place that you want to have the impact on others? So thinking about it from a people focused point of view.
Excuse me, Lisa, could you repeat the last question, please?
So when I'm at my best, that one?
Yes.
When
Or
I'm
yeah.
at my best, I help others by blank.
Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of people are writing furiously. I love that. So then the next question might be thinking about one small thing I could do that would reinforce my brand, and that this is the brand that you want, would be blank. So I'll give you an example of a small thing. One of my clients yesterday said, I'm going to put a post-it note on my monitor so I think about it before every meeting. And I would just throw out a last one, which is if you're going to get really intentional about your brand after today. So if I were going to be intentional about my brand, what might be one thing I would do differently this month? So this is kind of getting into the commitment of taking a next step. And I'll summarize those in a moment. But again, just getting your juices flowing. Any comments or questions? Was that helpful just to spend a couple of minutes thinking about you? All right. So just to kind of summarize, and then I know Marissa, you've got something you want to share. A couple things. So if you go back to everything that we talked about, really the place to start in doing this is your self-assessment, right? Self-assessing your brand, kind of auditing it, asking others for input, and really thinking about what makes you unique. And thinking about that from an aspirational standpoint, future focused. And again, this can play in whether you're currently in an organization, you're looking for a new role, really impact how you show up, and then write your statement. And I can tell you when you write that statement, it may feel a little awkward, it might feel a little bit weird. But say it out loud. Say it out loud to yourself. Say it out loud to others. Kind of try it on and see. And this would be like your family or someone you really trust. Think about it before you go into a meeting or interview. Hopefully it'll start to impact how you show up. And you'll probably evolve it, when you take it for a test drive. And then the other thing that I had told Marissa that I was going to offer everyone who came today was if you'd like to set up a complimentary coaching session with me, I'd be happy to walk through your brand statement with you and challenge you on it. Give some thought to it, maybe give you some ideas for building it. So we'll give you the information, the follow-up tomorrow to do that. But again, this is no cost, but I would really love for you all to do this and would love to help in any way that I can. So once you've written this and you're satisfied with what you've got, you really want to focus on bringing it to life. So you want to make it visible, you want to start showing up that way. And what I find is that when you do this, tack it up in front of you. Don't stick it in a drawer. And before you go into a meeting, think about, well, what am I going to do differently today? Might it be how you ask questions? Might it be whom you talk to before the meeting? Might it be that you show up a couple minutes early and talk to one of the senior leaders in the room? Might it be how you follow up or connect the dots in the meeting? So starting to think about how you show up in various interactions with other people. If you work in an office, it could be how you walk around and interact with other people. So it really is starting to think about, what do I need to do to bring these words to life? Because it takes time, right, to really get that embedded in those people around you. Also, you're going to want to do some networking, right? As you start to work on this internally, externally, and being very intentional about that. Because the more that people have the opportunity to experience you, will also start to create more visibility for your brand. You could put parts of this in your LinkedIn profile. So I wouldn't take it word for word in terms of the framework that I gave you, but there could be words that can show up in that little thing right under your name, or excuse me, your picture. Could be in the first line or two of your description. And remember, when recruiters see that, it's those first couple of lines that they see. So there might be some keywords in there you want to make, very public, right, in terms of that. And then I would encourage you to ask for feedback, right, and continue to evolve it. And again, you want to use people very, very trusted. So people in your professional life, people in your personal life, but those couple of people that maybe you really trust. And this is also a place that I'm happy to help if I can do that. So I think just as we kind of close, and I've got a closing slide for you. I'm curious for you all, maybe what's a key takeaway from today, and one thing you'll work on. You can just pop those in the chat. Someone said about putting in their elevator. Examine yourself. Yep. Oh, Rick, I love that. Yep, you're never going to be everything to everybody. Michelle, yep. People see me the same way I think you'll probably get more richness when you ask other people. Yep. DISC and Strengths Finders, yep. And in DISC, live into what you've got, right? Because there's so many benefits depending upon what your DISC is. Yes, intentionality is key. Yep, yep. Yes, watch out for false humility. Yep. Own it, be bold, be aspirational. These are great, you guys. All right, while those are coming in, just a couple key points, and then I'll turn it over to Marissa. You will, like I said, you will get the presentation, the words, the framework. I also have a bibliography of articles that you may want to access. I found this great in-depth workshop from PwC, so I'll make sure you have the link for that if you really want to spend some time diving into this. And then, like I said, if you would like a complimentary session to walk through your brand, I'd be happy to do that. So you'll get my contact information. You can email me. You can, set it up on my website. And I would just ask that you send your statement 24 hours ahead of time, because then we can work from there, and that'll give me a chance to prep for our discussion. And so with that, I'll just leave you with a last thought, which is, your personal brand is something that you can shape. You decide what it is, you get to shape it. And I would really hope that you would want to shape it rather than let others shape it for you. So with that, Marissa, turn it over to you.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Such a great workshop, so many great ideas. I think everyone is really thinking. That's why the chat is going crazy. I am going to quickly put just a quick feedback form in the chat for you guys. Oops, that was not what I wanted to do. I ended up putting, hold on one second. It's just a quick feedback that we ask about from our workshops. So if you wouldn't take a minute to do that, I will also include it in the message that we're going to send tomorrow. And please do take advantage of, it's so generous of Lisa to be offering the free branding session. So please take advantage of that. And just wanted to let you all know that we are going to be having another session on January 27th, and it's going to be about resumes in the age of AI. So it's going to be a really insightful topic for everyone. So look out for that Eventbrite that we'll put on our website. And there is my feedback form if you wouldn't mind filling that out. And if anyone does want to stay on, I don't know if Lisa has a couple minutes, we can answer any last minute questions. You can always feel free to email either of us or me, and I'll get the message to Lisa. We're happy to answer anything. So thank you all.
Thank you all, and thanks for the questions. Really appreciate them.
Thank you. Have a great week, you all. Thank
Thanks
you,
all.
Lisa.
Take care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
I'm going to stop the recording.
I've got a question.
Sorry, I'm going to stop the recording before you.